Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Duke University is known as a leader in primate studies, and now their reputation has expanded. Students and researchers now have a new set of resources to study the lives of chimpanzees. Jeff Smith has the story of the Jane Goodall archives being moved to Duke.
When you think about the backbone of research in the lives of chimpanzees, Jane Goodall is considered the world's foremost expert. Goodall began her studies of this primate species in Gombe, Africa over 50 years ago. She was the first person to fully immerse herself with the chimps and record all of their lifestyles.
And of course at the beginning the chimpanzees ran away, so it wasn't that difficult to record what they were or weren't doing. But, you know, as more and more chimps became habituated and we were feeding bananas, and then I suddenly realized, well, I can't do all this alone. And that was the beginning of the research center.
The research center data continued to grow as the information from Goodall and her team continued to file in. It didn't take long to figure out that something needed to be done to protect all of this groundbreaking information.
We looked and we realized that people weren't working, that there wasn't so much going on there. The data were piling up.
Being chewed up by mice.
They were being chewed up by
leaf-cutting insects.
They were on open shelves.
Termites.
And so we decided that, in fact, it would be better to bring all the original data to a safer place where we could get modern technology to work on computerizing data.
And Pusey transferred the research center data to the University of Minnesota, where she was working. Pusey continued working with Goodall in Gombe and with the archives.
I went to Gombe and the study had been going 10 years. I think there were 2 filing cabinets, which seemed like an immense amount of data, but now it's 22. And we think there are something like 400,000 sheets of data. And it changed, over time. So it goes from Jane's longhand notes to typewritten notes to check sheets as, certain kinds of behavior that we wanted to collect more systematically, you could do in check sheets.
The big problem that Anne and her team have is that even as they're desperately trying to catch up 50 years of data, there's new stuff coming in all the time. So it's a very tough job.
Now Pusey has moved to Duke University as the chair for evolutionary anthropology. Her move to Durham included her books, her papers, and the chimpanzee research data of the archives as well. To make sure the move has been successful, Goodall paid a visit to see the new location for herself.
The reason that she's coming is that we have moved the archive of the study of 50 years study of the chimpanzees at Gombe, and all of the data that's been collected on those chimps and is still being collected is all together in one place.
For Goodall, thumbing through what has been her life's work is a trip down memory lane from when she began writing down the notes back in 1960.
It's a bittersweet experience for me because I loved analyzing this data. I could never have dreamed of what's happening to it with the digitizing and scanning and all these amazing things that are now happening, which is going to make it so easy to work with compared to what I had to do, which was all by hand on bits of paper. Really, I mean, when I began, there was no electric typewriter, let alone a computer.
The faculty at Duke is taking every data sheet, every note, and every picture and digitizing it. It's a painstakingly slow process due to the complexity of the individual data.
Every day they follow a chimp in Gombe, mostly all day long. And during that time they have a check sheet that records who's there every 15 minutes because the group size varies. Chimps come and go. It shows on a map where they go, and then there's a longhand description of by time of what the focal individual's doing and also what's going on in the groups. Coming back and seeing what's going on, it makes me quite homesick for the days when I was doing that, because I actually love analyzing the data. But it's wonderful to know that it's happening and that some of the questions that aren't answered yet will be answered, and that in the doing so we will learn more questions to ask.
So now a new generation of researchers at Duke and around the world are thumbing through the data that Goodall spent so many years producing.
Seeing their faces and the interest that they were expressing, and how even from just entering the data with the chimps are known by the initials. Of course, in the field they got names, but for the data purpose, data entry, it's GL will be Gilka, for example. And yet, even from that, one of the students this morning was saying, you know, I'm just getting to know these personalities. It was interesting, wasn't it?
Goodall reminds those she speaks to how closely related and intertwined humans and chimpanzees are in life, as well as the importance of protecting these animals in the wild.
The wider picture is that everywhere where chimps have been studied across Africa, you find differences in, like, tool-using behavior. And it seems that these are learned by the young ones, watching, observing, and then imitating and practicing, which is a definition of human culture. And the tragedy is that even as we speak, there are chimpanzee populations threatened. Some have gone. So we'll never, ever be able to learn the full range of variation between populations.
The Jane Goodall Institute continues to work in Gombe and around the world to promote awareness for the chimpanzee populations. To learn more on the archives at Duke and the Jane Goodall Institute, log on to unctv.org/ncnow.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.